Hi, there are many different bottle sizes in wine industry, jargon, magnum and more. But does size really matters? Let's ask Justin. Hey Justin, does the size of a bottle really matter?
Well, as much as guys hate to admit it, yes, I'm sorry, but size does matter. I know. Heartbreaking truth. But there's a reason for it as well. Okay, so let's take a regular bottle. This bottle particularly, this is what we call the ullage. Ullage is the amount of air that's trapped in the bottle just naturally after bottling, right? Of course, there's little drops of CO2 sometimes or of sulfur to prevent the oxidation, but I mean, that's just what happens, right? There is some space in the bottle, so you can't avoid it. But normally, under conditions like this, there isn't enough to really spoil the wine. In fact, it's positive because it helps the wine develop. A wine should have some oxygen, which is why we use a cork to gradually give that little interaction with the environment to slowly develop the wine. Now, the problem comes when there's too much of that in the bottle. Let's take a look at a couple other formats. The Magnum, perhaps the most ideal format for any wine to age. Why? If you take a look, it's the same opening. It's using the same cork. It's basically the same bottle shape, it's just bigger. Now, the problem occurs when you have too much oxygen. Then the wine develops too quickly and not as slowly and surely and smoothly and elegantly as it should, which is why, you can over-decant a wine if you've left your wine open, or let's say you didn't finish your wine last night, you try it the next day or the day after. If it's a truly great wine, it might be better and better with 1 or 2 or 3 days being open, actually. But if it's not, or if it's normal wine, or if it's older, you'll see that it declines, right? It gradually sort of dies. So that's a more exaggerated version of what's constantly happening in this bottle. And the Magnum normally has the same cork and basically the same opening, so you're doubling the volume of wine in the bottle, but you're not changing the amount of oxygen, or the ullage. Now, when you move up to, let's say, a 3 liter, now you might notice that the cork has gotten a little bit bigger. Maybe it hasn't, and that's, of course, the perfect situation. But normally, the neck gets wider, the bottle, of course, is bigger, and you have more space between the wine and the cork. That means a larger surface area exposed to the oxygen, and, of course, more oxygen in the bottle. Now, some large formats use the same cork as a regular bottle, which is awesome, because then you don't struggle with trying to open this big-ass cork, and you can't fit your asso around it, and it's a total hassle if it's really aged and the cork is fragile, right? But this is a situation where even though the cork and the opening is essentially the same, the ullage might still be different. If it's not, that is an even more ideal situation. And then you got bottles like this. When you get into the 5 or 6 liter range, or even like 9, then you're talking about a much bigger cork, a much bigger bottle, a much bigger opening, and probably more ullage. Now, it's not all bad. You're like, well, then why would you ever buy big bottles? Well, because it's kind of a trade-off, right? All right, guys, you've had your 15 minutes. Up! This is my show, see? So it's a trade-off. Wine evolves better in larger volumes because, again, when you get to a bottle that size, or if a winery leaves wine in a tank for a long time, it's such a huge volume compared to the surface area that's exposed to the wine that it actually is positive. First of all, in a large bottle, you have much more protection from just the thermal consistency. In a large volume, it takes some pretty extreme conditions externally to move the meter on that temperature inside the bottle a few degrees. So it's gotta be extreme. Number 2, that much wine is less susceptible to vibration, because actually vibration is also very bad for a wine. It disturbs the molecular structure and it can cause it to be a little more discombobulated and, of course, to oxidize quicker. And number 3, light penetration. The bigger the bottle, the thicker the glass, which means less light photons actually make it into the wine to penetrate it and do some really nasty stuff. So the point is, what's the perfect format? Magnum. What's an amazing format? A large bottle. They have their trade-offs, they have their strengths, and they have their weaknesses, but point is, yes, unfortunately, bigger is better. So either you gotta have a whole lot of friends who like the wines you like, or you gotta come to Sticks and Stones and just have a glass.
Wait, what about the light?
Oof, that is a whole different can of worms, but tell you what, we'll hit that next week. We'll see you again on Ask Justin.
Thank you.